Good morning and welcome to a brand new Embryo water. This is called Embryo Baulking and we are in Oxfordshire, and I tell you what, this place on my first ever look round is beautiful. It almost feels extremely mature for a new lake. And there's been a lot of work going on over here the last couple of years. The otter fence has obviously gone in, the fish have gone in, the swims are now built, and it is looking absolutely mega. But I don't know a great deal about the lake. This is my first time here. I've had a few friends fish it over the past couple of years, including Richie McDonald, the Norton resident, and he had 10 or so lovely 30s back in spring, along with a whole host of other fish as well. So in the lake itself, we've got about 450, maybe 500 carp, and they are now residing in 20 acres of lovely, lovely lake. But one thing I do know, it's deep. Now in the middle of the pond, the depths exceed 35 foot, maybe going into even 40 foot of water. So it's a fairly deep lake, but that will make it fish extremely well at this time of the year, late autumn and going into the winter. Now I got here at first light, and I really wanted to get here at first light to see where the majority of the shows were. And I've had a couple of pals fish here, including Tom Stokes in the week, who had a couple of nice fish. And he said that the fish got on the new wind very, very quickly, but then soon backed off of it. And at first light, it was pretty clear there was a lot of fish on the back of the wind still. So I've chosen an area which gives me a little bit of both. Now, I'm in a sort of a corner area, so I've got access to the back of the wind where the majority of the shows were this morning, but also a lot of fish, not so much in the middle, but slightly to the right. So I'm going to potentially fish 2 rods on the back of the wind as a starting point, and then a single rod on the sort of wind as such. So that's the plan. Fingers crossed they stick around. I'm going to get some kit out of the van, get set up, and we'll find some spots. So all around Baulking, you're going to find these lovely stages. So if you are thinking about coming down, make sure you've either got a pod, a stage down like I am, or if you've got neither of them two, even some storm sticks out in the water, so you're not sort of pushing bank sticks through these lovely platforms here. Well, I've had several casts now, exactly where them fish were showing this morning on the back of the wind. And the bottom is pretty much, well, it's very, very similar, if not exactly the same as what we're seeing in the margins. Almost like a clayey sand, I guess, very dull thud, and just a very smooth all the way back in. And there's nothing in between where I cast out and as I come up the marginal shelf. There's no weed, there's no silt, there's definitely no gravel. So I'm gonna have another cast slightly to the left, just cover that zone where them fish were showing. If nothing comes back as any sort of like really distinguishable spots, I will pop a marker float up, see if anything changes depth-wise, and if nothing does, then it will just be a case of pop the marker float up, get some bait out there, and get a rig in position just where they were based showing this morning. Right, that float is exactly where the fish were this morning. But what I'm going to do now is reel that marker float back down till it hits the lead, like I'm going to do now. And that should be back to the lead. There she is, just there. And then take off or let up the float by 6 foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pop that in the clip. Wrap that round the wrap sticks, whatever that comes back at, that is exactly where my fishing rods will be fished. And then I'll drop my spod rod a further 6 foot back, so I'm baiting exactly over my fishing rods. So I've had a couple of casts now, and bang in line with that big old, I'm guessing it's a big old oak tree. It's a lovely little hard area. It started off, went a little bit further, exactly the same situation as I was before. Softish drop, pull back nice and smooth. But as I pulled it back this time, I've located a little gravelly area, not as far out as that one there, probably, I guess 13, 14 wraps, but it's a lot harder and it's a completely different substrate to what I'm picking up the majority of the time. So I've had a few casts, I've adjusted the clip a few times, and this now should be bang on the hard stuff. Let's have one more cast. So it's not miles out, still deepish. Bang, completely different. So we've got two areas now that are completely different, but both on fish. So now it is time to get this one here clipped up, get a little bit of bait knocked up, and get some rods out. Well, that's the mix done. So I've cooked up at home some top quality hemp, and this is some really good hemp. Kept the juices also, and I've put what, 6 or 7 scoops in there, added some corn and added some boilies, and there's a fair amount of the liquid from the hemp in there, and I'll let them boilies over the next sort of hour or so just absorb all that hemp juice. But what I will do is add a little bit more hemp oil. Like I mentioned earlier on, it's really deep out there. You know, I half expected to be fishing a little bit deeper than what I am, maybe sort of 22s, 25s, but 17 is still deep. So I'm gonna add a little bit of hemp oil as well, which will really make this a really oily mix and hopefully drag any carp that are lingering around in mid-water down onto my spot. So that's all mixed up. Give that about an hour or so, then I'll start introducing some bait. Right, that's one solid bag done, 2 to go. Now the rigs that I'm fishing are all identical in components. The only thing that has changed is the hook bait choice. I've got a little bit of fake corn in this one here, a little bit of yellow IB. I've got like a little match the hatch type thing here, same as the pellet. And this one's actually soaked in some new banoffee goo. And I tell you what, it does smell extremely nice. And this one here is pretty much matching essential cell boilies. I've got a little essential IB on that one, a little wafter as well. Like I mentioned, they're all exactly the same components, so I'll work you from the top to bottom. I've got one of these small sinkers up the line with a little bit of putty in play, just to cover that up. And somewhere up there, he's camping, there he is. I've got a little flying bat lid on. For me, it's really important to have, you know, that last 15, 20 foot now to the deck. You know, I honestly believe that fish that don't know they're getting fished for stick around for longer. You know, you can all go into a swim and catch 2 or 3, but it's managing that swim and getting the most out of it and getting the longevity out of it that's important. And that's where I think, you know, having fluorocarbon on, having little flying bat leads on in the right situation will help you get more bites out of your swim over the period of your session. From there, I've got my fluorocarbon going straight through to a 3.5 ounce inline. Now, I use 3s a lot of the time, but when I'm in sort of deep water or I'm fishing at distance, I go for a 3.5. I've gone for a 3.5 here because I'm fishing in deep water and I want that solid bag to get to the bottom as quick as possible. You know, the more time it takes for that bag to get from the top of the water down to the bottom, the more chance it's got to melt in before it hits the bottom. So that's the reason for the bigger lead, even though I'm fishing at 14, 15 wraps on one of the rods. From there, little size 8 swivel. Oh yeah, the lead as well, really important. I've always do this. I replace the plastic insert to a shock leader sleeves. It just makes, when I'm making my bag and I'm tapping it and, you know, getting it nice and tight like this one here, that my tail rubber that I'd normally put on, you know, doesn't pull off. This shock leader sleeve is now, you know, part of the lead as such, and it can't pull off when I'm really sort of tapping it and getting all them sort of corners filled with pellet and pellet dust. From there, I've got what, 3.5, 4 inches of 18-pound Supernatural. Now I've got 2 loops at either end, both figure of 8, one here so I can loop onto the swivel nice and easily, and this one here gives me a nice little slip D. This basically just helps me be able to change my hook with ease and quickness. You know, all I've got to do is pull my bit of shrink tubing off, take the hook off, put a new one on, and I'm away again. I've got a little sinker on there, little mini one, little small one, sorry, just so I know that that little bit of 18-pound supernatural is now to the bottom and not sort of wafting around in the air. And then to my sort of favoured hook, you know, wherever possible, wherever I can, I will fish a Longshank. I think they're absolutely incredible, and I honestly believe they convert more pickups into bites, and that's fishing to your net. So they turn extremely quickly. It may look like a small hook. I've had massive carp on these, both in England and abroad when I'm fishing in France, so I've got the utmost confidence in them. The hook baits are all mounted on little micro ring swivels, and that's about it really. It's all tucked into a nice solid bag. Now we have got, you know, normally in this situation where I've got deep water, anything over about, let's say 12 foot, I start worrying if that bag's gonna make it to the bottom or not. I'm in 17 foot here, so I would normally double bag my normal solid bags, which are small ones. But we have got a new product coming out that's coming out very shortly, and this is the slow melt solid bag. Again in small, it's pretty much double the thickness, if not a little bit more than a normal solid bag. So that's gonna take double, if not a little bit more time for that bag to melt on the way to the bottom. So these are them, can still get the bags extremely tight, they're extremely tough, and like I say, that's gonna make sure that that pellet is around my hook bait, which is the most important thing. So I'm gonna get these rods wrapped up. The right hand spot, 14 3/4, the two on the left, they're both at 19.5. So let's get out there. The bait's out there also. I put about 10 spoms on the right hand rod and about probably 13 or 14 spoms on the two popular spots. So there's a bit of bait out there. Get these solids out there, and hopefully we'll start seeing a few as it draws into the evening. Right, one little thing that I will be doing that I think makes a massive difference in deep water is getting even more oil and more attraction to the bottom next to my hook bait, and that's pumping a little bit of hemp oil into my solid bag. So all I do is get a little chodit tool, make a little hole, enough for the thickness of my syringe to go in, pop that in there, there she goes, and then just squirt away. I'm not gonna go mad, probably like, you know, 3 or 4 mil. Now that bag is ready to get out there. Just introducing a couple of more spoms on each spot, keeping that bait going in, more importantly keeping that smell going for the water column, and hopefully dragging a few fish down this evening and into tonight. You know, it's typical autumn now. Gets a lot cooler as the sun fades away behind the trees, and a lot of the bites this time of the year are through the hours of darkness and into the early morning. And during today, there's been a couple shows, nothing like there was this morning. You know, if I got here at midday today, I really wouldn't know where to start. So I'm so glad I got here at first light, and to, you know, pinpoint a few likely areas going into tonight is, you know, the key. So it's all looking promising. I'm going to keep the rods as they are. I'm more than happy that the rods are fishing. But you know, through the hours of darkness, I'm going to keep this bait going. And every hour, maybe hour and a half, 2 or 3 spoms, just keeping that bait going for the water column. Hopefully, they will be diving down on our baited spots, and we'll get these alarms ring-a-ding-dinging. But we'll keep the bait going in, and we'll keep our hopes up.